What if everything you thought you knew about ancient Israelite history differed from what mainstream religion tells us? The Black Hebrew Israelites movement tells a different story, one that claims African Americans, and even some Native and Latin Americans, are the true descendants of the ancient Israelites. But their beliefs don't stop there. They've created their own unique interpretation of the Bible, blending elements from Christianity, Judaism, Freemasonry, and more, forming a movement that's as diverse as it is controversial. In this video, we're unpacking the origins, beliefs, and divisions within the Black Hebrew Israelite community. And that's not all. We'll also explore why they're often at the center of the debate. A tapestry of faith. Let's take it all the way back to the late 1800s. As America was moving through Reconstruction and into a new century, two men, Frank Cherry and William Saunders Crowdy, sparked a unique spiritual movement. Claiming visions and divine revelations, they began preaching that African Americans were descendants of the ancient Hebrews from the Bible. This idea would grow into the Black Hebrew Israelite movement, a blend of religious beliefs, cultural identity, and for some, radical ideas that have become the source of both controversy and curiosity. Crowdy founded the Church of God and Saints of Christ in 1896 in Kansas. His teachings leaned into a messianic view of Jesus while integrating elements from Judaism, like worship practices and dietary laws. Crowdy's followers looked to his message as a new path, one that claimed a birthright many felt had been stripped away. The early leaders of this movement, like Cherry and Crowdy, were deeply influenced by Freemasonry, borrowing elements from its traditions to shape their practices. These beliefs merged into unique doctrines. For instance, Cherry believed in a square earth surrounded by 3 layers of heaven, and he strictly forbade pianos and tithe collections, and even directed his followers to pray facing east. In reality, this movement is more than just a belief system. It's a vibrant community rooted in rich traditions and cultural identities. And when we fast forward to the early 20th century, the movement exploded in numbers. In Harlem alone, at least 8 Black Hebrew organizations were founded between 1919 and 1931. Other than the Church of the Living God, which combined Jewish practices with Christian elements, members wore skullcaps while praying and refrained from eating pork, and the Church of God and Saints of Christ, which sees themselves as the oldest African American congregation. There's the Commandment Keepers, founded by Wentworth Arthur Matthew in 1919. This congregation is known for its adherence to traditional Jewish practices, including observing kosher laws and celebrating Jewish holidays. And let's not forget the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. The group made headlines by relocating from Chicago to Israel in the late 20th century, claiming descent from the tribe of Judah and incorporating African American culture into their religious practices. Lastly, we have the One West Camp, a messianic subgroup that emphasizes the Old and New Testaments while identifying the 12 tribes of Israel with Black, Latin American, and Native American communities. Science and Scripture. Alright, now that we have identified the key groups and organizations, let's look at the scientific data that supports claims made by these groups. Modern science points to East Africa as the birthplace of the first modern humans, a fact supported by DNA evidence. Humanity's roots begin here, and some of the earliest peoples were indeed Black. So, how does this connect to the ancestry of Black communities across Europe, the Americas, and Africa? Many of us have been taught limited narratives about Black history, often framing it primarily within the story of slavery. But there's much more to it, and some believe that this erasure and alteration of history were intentional to keep Black people unaware of their rich and influential past. The Book of Exodus, for example, tells us that Moses led the Hebrew Israelites out of Egypt, a land rich in African heritage. This theory finds its roots in the Bible, and one verse that stands out is Deuteronomy 28 verse 32, which warns, "You will wear out your eyes watching for your sons and daughters day after day, powerless to lift a hand." This echoes the Atlantic slave trade, where families were torn apart and parents were helpless as their children were taken away. Deuteronomy also warns of a fate where the Israelites would be exiled to distant lands and forced to adopt foreign beliefs and practices. While some scholars believe these verses refer to ancient events, others argue that Deuteronomy's prophecies directly correlate with the transatlantic slave trade. And then there are the stories from Ethiopia that link certain Black black communities to the lineage of King Solomon and Queen Sheba, while other black people may be connected to the lost 10 tribes of Israel. The connection between Israel and Africa has deep roots. The Queen of Sheba, believed to be from Ethiopia, visited King Solomon in Jerusalem. Arriving with lavish gifts of spices, gold, and precious stones, she and Solomon discussed matters of wisdom and faith. This legendary meeting points to an ancient alliance between Israel and Africa. Tradition even holds that the Queen and Solomon had a son, who became Ethiopia's first emperor, suggesting that black Hebrews may trace their lineage to this union. Figures like Moses marrying the black woman Zipporah also symbolize the connections between the Israelites and African populations. A continent of connections. And that's not all. There are still communities in North Africa with roots tracing back to the ancient Israelites. Even though many migrated to Israel and other countries in the 20th century, descendants of these historic communities still live in regions such as the Niger Delta. Some historians suggest that Israelites gradually made their way through Egypt and the Nile to settle in parts of West Africa. Historical records also show that many Jewish migrants settled along Africa's Atlantic coast, further contributing to the diverse religious and cultural landscape by blending into existing communities or forming new ones. The trauma of forced migration resurfaced during the Atlantic slave trade, where millions of Africans were taken to the Americas. Some even see this tragic event as targeting not just labor, but perhaps the descendants of ancient Israelites, adding a new dimension to history. Genetic evidence of a shared past. Modern genetic research has brought incredible insights, tracing links between African and Israelite populations through DNA markers. Scientists have identified specific lineages that hint at a shared ancestry by analyzing mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome markers. Studies show that certain genetic markers in African populations connect them to ancient Israelites. One groundbreaking study on Y chromosomes in Jewish populations worldwide even found common markers among Jewish communities in Africa. Beyond genetics, cultural practices offer more evidence of a shared heritage. Many African tribes maintain customs similar to ancient Israelite traditions, such as circumcision, dietary laws, and religious festivals. A lost tribe rediscovered. In recent years, however, not all attention towards these key Hebrew Israelite groups has been positive. Some factions have gained notoriety for their provocative street preaching, which has sometimes led to anti-Semitic and xenophobic remarks. And while that sounds too bleak, what if we told you one of Israel's lost tribes has been hidden in plain sight for centuries, nestled in the Ethiopian highlands? Legends of Israel's lost tribes have fascinated historians and scholars for centuries. Among these tribes is the tribe of Dan, which, as the Bible recounts, originated in northern Israel. After King Solomon's death, the kingdom split, and Dan seemingly vanished. However, some biblical passages hint that they didn't disappear at all. Isaiah 11 verse 11 suggests that God would one day reclaim his people from distant lands like Cush, an area that includes modern-day Ethiopia. This has led many to wonder, could the tribe of Dan have traveled to Africa, seeking refuge amid the chaos of the ancient Middle East? In the 9th century, a traveler named Eldad Hadani claimed to be a descendant of the tribe of Dan. He told stories of his ancestors fleeing to Cush to preserve their beliefs, far from the strife of their homeland. While some doubted his account, it sparked hope among Jews worldwide. Fast forward to the 20th century, when the plight of Beta Israel began to gain attention. In the 1980s, Ethiopia faced devastating famine and civil unrest, endangering the lives of the Beta Israel community. In response, Israel launched Operation Moses, a daring mission that airlifted thousands of Ethiopian Jews to Israel. And the story didn't end there. When conditions in Ethiopia worsened, Israel initiated Operation Solomon in 1991, rescuing nearly 14,000 people in under 36 hours. These operations were more than rescues. They were a restoration of identity and heritage. A diverse community. It's not just Beta Israel that represents the black Hebrew Israelites. They are actually a diverse group. Let's look at some notable figures from this community. First up, we have Kodak Black, the American rapper known for his hit songs and unique style. Born in 1997, Kodak has openly discussed his faith and heritage, bringing attention to the Black Hebrew Israelite community through his platform. Next is Eddie Butler, a singer from Israel. Butler's journey in music has helped bridge cultural gaps and promote understanding of the Black Hebrew experience in Israel. Moving on to sports, we have Steve Cunningham, a boxer born in 1976. Known for his dedication both in the ring and to his faith, Cunningham represents the athletic spirit of the community. Then there's Ben Ami Ben Israel, a key spiritual leader who established the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. His impact is still felt today as he led many from the U.S. to Israel, creating a thriving community there. While these names don't represent all the different groups, they highlight the diversity and complexity within the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. As we wrap up today's exploration, it's clear that the narratives surrounding ancient Israelite history are far more intricate than what mainstream religion often presents. So remember, history is not just what we read. It's a story that continues to unfold. Were you aware of this hidden side of history? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more, and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos.